I call to order the Bergen Community College Board of Trustees meeting, Tuesday, March 5th, 2019. Maria, could you please read the open part?
Yes, Chair. The notice requirements of the Open Public Meetings Act of the State of New Jersey have been satisfied by an annual notice, including the date, time, and place of this meeting, posted in the first floor main lobby of the Pitkin Education Center of Bergen Community College, was mailed to the Record and the Herald News, and filed with the Clerk of the County of Bergen, November 26, 2018.
I'm Maria, please take roll call.
Yes. Joseph A. Barretto.
Here.
Dorothy Blakesley.
Here.
Gerard Carroll.
Here.
Patrick Fletcher.
Here.
Mark Longo.
Here.
Carol Otis.
Here.
Irene Ujo.
Here.
Shatal Ranjan.
Here.
Joseph Zara is absent tonight. Sabora Pekka, our alumni trustee. Thank you.
Thank you. Pledge of Allegiance, please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We will now take reports of our trustees. Vice Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. On February 9th to the 13th, I attended the 2019 Community College National Legislative Summit in Washington, D.C., with some of the fellow trustees here, as well as with Dr. Redmond. I believe that the trustees and Dr. Redmond may speak about this summit along with our visit to Capitol Hill during this meeting as well. During the conference, I attended the Governance and Bylaws Committee meeting. The major discussion was about updating our bylaws to reflect the ACCT support for four-year degrees when needed at community colleges. I also attended the session on improving access and success for males in urban and rural community college, as well as attending the African American Trustee Caucus meeting. On February 23rd, I attended the Bergen stage play, Cyrano. The acting was fantastic as usual, and I encourage everyone to attend the play. On February 25th, I attended the Bergen Cohort Celebration Dinner with Chairperson Otis. The school culinary department did a very fine job in preparing the food, and congratulations to all the honorees, in which I believe some are here today. And on February 28th, I attended the Black History Month closing banquet here in Paramus campus, along with other trustees that are seated among us. It was a very enjoyable event. Madam Chair, this concludes my report.
Thank you. Secretary? There you are, Patrick. No, you're not. Joseph. Joseph.
Thank you.
Oh, my God.
I'm
It's
hurt,
been a long
Madam
day.
Chair.
I didn't even recognize you.
Yeah, that's all right. Yes, the tan.
The tan, I was gonna say it's the tan.
The tan and the gray hair.
I was
We'll
wondering
go
who
with
the
that.
movie star was.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to see if I can make a motion to go before Gerald the next time,
Yeah.
because, he has 10 things and then I have one. But
That's all right. Your one is important.
I would like to announce, we were at the closing ceremony of Black History Month last Thursday evening. I have to say the county exec was there, President Redmond. The speeches and the stories that were given, in my opinion, were just spot on. They were inspiring. They told a story that just tied in with the theme of that evening's event, and beautifully done as always. Food was great, and it was wonderful just to participate on such a beautiful evening. That
We're
concludes my
happy to
report.
have you.
Thank you.
Treasurer Dottie.
The Audit and Finance Committee met last month. We are going to be recommending that the board approve the attached resolutions. I just want to quickly also report that the college does do we send our faculty out for travel to different conferences. President Redmond has instituted a process where those traveling faculty bring back a report that can be shared. And those reports have gotten to be very, very good. So, congratulations to any faculty that are in the audience, but it's a good thing. Okay.
President Redmond.
Thank you. I had intended to make some comments about the National Legislative Summit that Gerard Carroll mentioned, and that Carol Otis and Chital Ranjan and I attended in Washington. But I think because of the potential length of the agenda and the board hearing, the budget hearing, that I'm going to delay those remarks until next meeting. That also give me a chance to incorporate any insights or, from the governor's budget address today as well. We have two items, though, here, and I'm going to reverse the order, if I may. And I'm going to ask Larry Levinka, the Executive Director of Public Relations and Community and Cultural Affairs, to give us a report on the Community College Initiative.
Good evening. Let me just get our PowerPoint up here. Tended to by the wonderful Bob Pat. Everybody know Bob Pat? That's Bob.
Hey, Bob.
For many years.
Many years. Many years. Thank you, Bob. So good evening once again, Mr. President, Madam Chair. The Community College Opportunity Grant. If you will recall, in September, the state of New Jersey announced the 13 community colleges that would be receiving grant funds as part of this project. Of course, Bergen was part of that 13, which was very exciting, and that's a testament to the people that worked on that initial application. But what was the Opportunity Grant? The Opportunity Grant was spearheaded by the Governor, Phil Murphy, and the Secretary of Higher Education, Zacchaeus Smith-Ellis, who, sidebar, thanks to our wonderful Trustee Ranjan, will be our commencement speaker this year, Zacchaeus Smith-Ellis, the Secretary of Higher Education. So sidebar, and thank you, Dr. Ranjan. Again, the Community College Opportunity Grant was a spring 2019 pilot for just this semester. It was a last dollar initiative, and if you recall, the last dollar means that the grant would come in at the end of whatever, oh my goodness. Whatever else a student received in the form of grants or other aid. This would be in the form of Pell, TAG, EOF, NJ STARS, etc. Eligibility was for students that were in families that made $45,000 or less, would be taking 6 credits or more at the college, were seeking a first degree, lived in Bergen County, and some other eligibility requirements. Now, the state had allocated $20 million for the 13 community colleges, including Bergen, to provide the scholarship money for these students. They also allocated $5 million that would go to all 19 community colleges, $250,000 each, that would provide support in the form of technology or advertising and outreach. So that was what was laid before us in September, and obviously as we were preparing for the spring 2019 semester, we needed to mobilize very quickly. So what did we do? We had a committee that formed, and some of the members are in attendance tonight, and we will recognize them a little bit later in this presentation. But quickly, we reviewed and we audited the application that was sent to the state, and we developed 3 tactical teams for outreach and recruitment, support, and data. And the objectives there were to identify the focus areas and identify the tactics that we would use in order to roll out this grant. Now again, we had to do this very quickly, as we only learned in September that we would receive it, giving us October, November, December to really promote the program. But the good thing is we were able to mobilize very quickly. And let's go over a few of those tactics that we did. Outreach and recruitment. We established a point of contact, a single person at the institution that could field inquiries from the community. She is here tonight. Her name is Jeanette Donis, and there she is. She was our point of contact. We developed various communication channels, including free.bergen.edu. We established a hotline, 201-879-FREE. We established an email address, tuitionfree@bergen.edu. We took out advertisements. We did postcards. So really a full court press when it came to trying to bring students under the college's umbrella for this campaign. An FAQ that was developed in multiple languages, and we sent recruiters out into the community with this information and got it into the various communities that may not speak English, to try and put the word out there. Another member of the committee, Gemma Figaro, who's here tonight, did a lot of community outreach in that regard to try and disperse the information on the grant. So, other tactics that were as part of these other groups, if you recall, there were 3 tactical groups that we developed, one for outreach and recruitment, another was for support. So it's one thing to make this promise to students and say, hey, we've got this great program. It's another to support them when they're here. So again, we mined our lists that we had for our student groups and sent letters to them, reached out to them to say, there is advising available to you. There is tutoring available to you. There is the Bergen Community College Foundation available to you. Because we know that even if your tuition is being paid for through the grant, that may not cover everything when it comes to your education, whether it be support or financial. So we wanted to make those resources available to students front and center, and that's why we did reach out to them. That's currently still going on, where the students who have received the grant, and even some of those that haven't, have been reached out and discussed their options with advising and tutoring that are available to them, trying to promote those things. Of course, data was that last group that we talked about. What did we use our data? Well, we used the data for what we always use our data for. We mined our list. We used that to target different student groups, to target student groups in the community and here. And then, of course, there are reports that the data enables us to provide. And some of that data I will share with you right now. The inquiries. I'm proud to say that our outreach worked really, really well. Now, there's an upside and a downside to that. You can see the numbers on the screen there, but free.bergen.edu received over 47,000 page views in just a few months. That's really phenomenal. Now, here's the part that there's an upside and a downside. These inquiries came in through our website. More than 1,100 forms were filled out on the website. 858 calls to the hotline, and 828 emails to tuitionfree@bergen.edu. So what does that say? That says that the outreach did its job. It spread the word about it. Now here's the downside. The downside was, what did I say before? We had a single point of contact, right? We had Jeanette Donis, one person who was managing all of these inquiries. So we learned very quickly that we were going to have to spread some of that work around the financial aid department. But it's a good problem to have when you have outreach that works like this. Now, of course, that says nothing of the advertising, the recruiters that were out in the community, our on-campus events that we did, tables, these kinds of things that really promoted that one-on-one interaction. There's no tracking that I'm going to give you data on all of that tonight too, but the point is there was a lot of touch points that were a hit for our students in the community and here internally at the college. Now, what did we find? This is the meat here. There were over 2,300 students at Bergen Community College that met the AGI for the Community College Opportunity Grant. That was $45,000. Now, to date today, there are 323 students who have received over $465,000 from the Community College Opportunity Grant. Now you say, why is there a gap there? If there's 2,300 students, but only 300 have received grant money, how can that be possible? Well, here it is. You have all of these students that meet these requirements, but a large percentage of them had their tuition already paid for through Pell, TAG, EOF, STARS. So there were only 323 in the end that actually required grant dollars from the Community College Opportunity Grant. Now, a few things there. Why is that relevant? Now, for that 2,300 students, how many of them may not have come back to the institution? Or how many of them heard about the grant and they were a new student and said, boy, I'm going to take that opportunity, right? So you have these students out in the community or here at the college, but didn't end up getting grant dollars. But it was still the grant that was the impetus for them to come back to the college or enroll at the college in the first place. To us, That's the real impact of the grant, and that's something that we're trying to mine right now and determine how many students were actually impacted by the community college opportunity grant. We've heard from the state already that the program has underperformed in their eyes. The state, if you recall, allocated $20 million. Now, that may be because some data that they had used to try and figure out how many students might be eligible was not presented in the best of ways. To date, we heard last week that the state has dispersed about $2 million of that $20 million. They expect in the end that that number will be higher than that, whether that's 6 or 7 million, but it's still not 20 million. Why I think that's relevant for Bergen is, and Dottie and I had a good conversation earlier about this, Bergen is accounting for about 25% of 2 million if you're looking at 463,000. So that means that it seems as though Bergen has done a pretty good job of leveraging the program to the students that it would make an impact on. So something to consider. The governor today, for your information, did go before the legislature and request that the Community College Opportunity Grant be extended to all 19 community colleges in the fall and spring of next year. He's allocated $33.5 million for the grant to continue. We did not see a breakdown as of this afternoon about how that money would be allocated, but the expansion is in the budget for next year.
Larry?
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt,
Yes.
but there seems to be some talk as to whether or not the AGI is set too low.
Right.
Is there any consideration by the powers that be to move that number?
So editorially, and
Yeah.
at least for the
It may be an unfair question.
the
because you
confines-
just had a
We
meeting
have
today.
to, let me.
Go ahead.
into that. It's a difficult question right now politically, because there's two issues at stake here. Do you use additional money to expand the program to apply to all the 19 community colleges, or do you use it to increase the AGI? My impression is that there's not agreement amongst all the presidents as to what the priority should be. My view, and I've made it known, is that unless they raise that AGI, the program will underperform this coming year. So,
Even with the expansion?
yes, because too few students require the additional funds because their tuition is already being paid for at that level. Now, it's not completely clear to me yet what the governor's position is going to be, but if the position is to hold the AGI where it is now, I will be asking the trustees to lobby and advocate for an increase in the AGI, because I believe that unless that's increased, the program will remain hobbled.
The Council of County Colleges has suggested that the AGI be moved to the state median income, which is approximately $76,000. And look, Bergen County is an affluent area, but there's a lot of affluent areas in New Jersey. Moving it to $76,000 would certainly bring a much greater number of students under the umbrella. The future, as we talked about a few minutes ago, the expansion, a higher AGI may help, would certainly change some things. And then some of the more nuanced approaches. One thing that we saw, second degree seekers, students calling and saying, I want to take advantage of the grant, but I already have a degree. Well, they were knocked out. They were not eligible. So those are the kinds of things in the future that, as the president said, we may be looking to the trustees to lobby for. Now, all of this, right, that sounds like a whole lot of work, right? You hear all those inquiries, you hear about all of this work that's been done for the Opportunity Grant and for our students. It doesn't happen without a team and without a committee. Now, I've been at the college for 12 years, and I've been on a lot of committees, but I can say that this was truly one of the best committees that I've ever worked on. And why? Why? This was a group that was dedicated. From Jump Street, they cared about this grant, they wanted to bring students into the mix, they took it seriously, and they committed themselves to this project. They were intuitive. When there was something that seemed out of place, or there was a question that needed to be asked, they asked those questions. I recall we were at a conference a few months ago. Kasha Ress, who's here today too, she had brought up an issue that I don't know if any of us were really thinking about, but then that became something that we integrated into our plans and into our work. So they were intuitive. They were analytical, you know? They saw data. And they said, well, since we're seeing this, we should be doing that. That's the kind of work when you're in a leadership position and you have a committee behind you that's doing that as part of the entire project, it makes things so much easier because you have really capable people. Now, I'd like to recognize those in attendance tonight who participated on the committee. Gemma Figaro, Jeanette Donis, Tabitha Jones, Kasia Ress, Jennifer Reyes, Kyra Fazal, and Madeline Trimble all the way in the back. So I'd like to give them recognition. But remember, this is the start of something. This is not the end. This was a pilot, but someday we may be talking, someday very soon, we may be talking about universal free community college in the state of New Jersey and perhaps even the country if things go politically a certain way. Now, I want to leave you with one thing. Talked about the people who worked on the project. We've talked about the state and how they're involved. We've talked about the money that's been expended. The students, right? That's the most important thing here. I'll tell you a little story. There's a student, her name is Lindsay Nanja. She attends Bergen Community College. But that doesn't tell you the story of Lindsay Nanja. Last year, she was a National Endowment for the Humanities scholar, was able to complete research, and was able to work in a lab. Lindsay Nanja, her parents died when she was 2 years old of AIDS. She came to this country without parents. Now, what she wants to do is become a doctor because she does not want any 2-year-old to have to face what she did in her life. Lindsay Nanja is a community college opportunity grant recipient. And she said this: I have great aspirations of becoming a doctor. But there's a problem when people like me dream big. We are often faced with a big barrier, how to afford the next semester. Getting the community college opportunity grant helped keep me believing that I'll have the opportunities to continue my education. I am filled with hope. Thank you.
I have a question, if I may.
Yes.
Okay. Not a question, actually a request,
Yeah.
more than a question. So what I am thinking as you're giving this whole talk and all the committee that is involved, that there is a whole reflective piece about how you went through the process and what it meant to each of you. What I would really like is for each of the individuals who served on the committee to write down maybe a page or so about the reflections of the whole process. In first person, I don't want it as like combined or mushed because I want to know who is that person, what are they saying, what did they see, and what do they think about it. I would like to put it in a binder along with the student's story, and I would like to personally deliver it to the Secretary of Higher Education.
We can certainly do that.
Good idea.
This is a fantastic job. Very well coordinated, very multifaceted. This is a lesson that should be shared with the state on how to market this program. I know you've given them a bottom line and why it's working and why it shouldn't. Have you shared this? Because this is a great thing
So
that you-
there's a reporting structure that the state established, an interim report that was filed in December, and we will have a final report that's due in June. And we will certainly, obviously, summarize our work in that. And I would suspect that we would probably leverage that report in a few different ways, whether it's creating a presentation like this, or as Dr. Ranjan said, presenting it to legislators or other government officials. But thank you, Dottie.
Good job, Larry.
Very nice.
And Larry did do a good job. I really
Yep.
appreciate it.
It was very well done.
Now we come to something that's very important, our annual budget hearing. Victor Anaya, Dr. Anaya will come to the microphone to lead us through the presentation. But as he's coming up, I wanted to make a couple comments. I'm not sure whether we have any students in the audience. Do we? Okay, but what I want the board to know is that students were deeply involved. We did two things. I met with SGA and I think late January, early February to give them a preview of the budget. It was a good meeting with them. And we also had hearing, just what you'll hear now, earlier today at 3 o'clock on the main campus. I've been to a lot of these budget hearings over the years. They can be dreadfully boring, and often there are very few questions, and when there are questions, the questions often are very aggressive. It was just a great hearing. The students asked lots of just really good questions, and one of the outcomes of that is we offered to SGA, because it was clear that, to me, that they wanted to have a deeper understanding of how budgets work and how it works here at the college, and so we offered that next year we would do a workshop with SGA on budget construction. And then the last thing is Victor and I met with the faculty senate leaders today for various things. We have a regular monthly meeting. I thought that because of the board meeting being here, it was unlikely that they would be attending, and as a courtesy, we gave them a briefing on the budget as well. So,
Good evening, everyone. How are you? Thank you, Dr. Redmond. In your packets, you'll find a PowerPoint of the budget overview that I'm going to be presenting to you, similar to what we've done in the past. The overviews for the 3 years, 2018 through fiscal year 2020. Putting together the budget is a very tedious task that we do in Excel. And I want to thank Dr. Jan Falcone, who reports to me, who does a lot of the legwork that is very tedious. So thank you, Jan. So in your packet is the summary of our budget dollars and expenditures that we're proposing for fiscal year 2020. As we've been facing challenges with enrollment, the budget has been going down in recent years. Alone from last year, our operating budget is dropping almost $2 million. From 3 years ago, it was almost $5 million. Of course, that we have to balance our expenses, which has been challenging, but we've been working together collaboratively with everybody at the college, and I thank the executive team and Dr. Redmond's guidance for direction for where we're going with our budget. But I don't want to spend too much time on it. In the packet is a breakdown of the budget dollars, and next to each caption on page 4 are the type of recordings that go into each of the lines that we use for developing the budget. Included is the federal portion of what, and the state portion of the financial aid, which is pretty much just for reporting purposes, showing the revenues coming in, and you'll see on the expenditures of the expenditures going out. So we do that. So historically, our I provided a 44-year trend on page 5 of where our budget started with 44 years ago. As you know, county, state, and our tuition should be funded equally. So in the earlier years in 1977, the county funding was pretty supportive of being approximately 33%. To where it is today is a 20.4% of our total budget. We have been getting 2% increases year over year. We had a little challenge earlier, but we were able to get that restored to where we're getting a 2% increase for next year, about $440,000. The state aid, similar in the beginning years, was pretty close to being to the 33%. Now it's at 11.7%. State funding has been constant for the past 10 years or so, relatively, and it's not going to be changing from what I know today. Most of our revenues come from tuition and fees. 44 years ago, again, it was almost 33%. Today, the tuition and fees that the students pay is about 65.9% of our total budget. It's come a long way in the 44 years. On page 8 is pretty much a 44-year plotting of how the revenue stream has gone from 40% on tuition up to 65.9%, whereas the county funding and the state funding have gone down, just for correlation. Page 9 summarizes our expenditures. I have in the line items the type of expenses that are recorded in these lines. What's common in each of these lines is mostly the salary expenditures and other consistent expenditures like office supplies, conferences, memberships, consultant fees that would go also into these lines. A picture always shows you how things look. As you can see, most of our expenditures are for institutional support. And in institutional support, a large part of it is for his health and pension benefits that are one of the biggest areas that cover our expenditures. Again, academics and instruction and academic support are second and third, as well as the other areas. Salaries and benefits make up about 80% of our budget. That's been pretty consistent in the past number of years. Our other expenses are roughly 21% of our budget, and those type of expenditures are listed on page 11. What is the majority of those type of expenses? So you can see a picture on page 12, 60% of it is our salaries, 19% is benefits, and other expenditures are 21%. The components of salaries on page 13 and 14 is the type of salary expenses that are associated with our union contracts. So that you can see the type of salary expenses that make up the 60% of the salaries that are paid out by the college. And the other expenses are also included in here as the major components of our expenditures. Come next year, we're going to be increasing our tuition in county, out of state by 1.5%. Page 15 highlights the differential between the current rate and the proposed rates. Page 16, for the past 15 years, you can see how the college has changed the tuition increases in recent years. We're trying to keep it at a minimum. But earlier, 15 years ago, we were 5-8% in some cases. So it's come a long way over the past 15 years. Starting in the fall, we currently have three type of fees. We have an add drop fee of $10 and a reinstatement fee of $25. We've decided to propose eliminating these fees because the add drop fee is a fee that's incurred after classes start, during the 5 days after a registration. So if a student would change classes, every time they would change their class or schedule, they would be incurring a $10 fee. And we found that often that fee doesn't get paid by the students after their bills are paid. So it was more of a nuisance for the students to incur this fee. The reinstatement fee also is if students are dropped because they're on probation, don't pay their bill, or they're released, and advising would have to reinstate them, they would charge a $25 fee. So we're trying to be more student-friendly, and so that the students have a better experience at the college. So we've eliminated these fees starting in the fall. And again, with increasing our tuition, we're proposing that we increase our fees, which have not been increased in quite a number of years. The average increases on page 18 and 19 for the fees that are changing is 1.5%, with the exception of the course fees for excess contact hours, where we're proposing a $10 increase. And that $10 increase, as outlined on page 19, would have a maximum of 7 excess contact hours, and the last time this fee was increased was April 2012.
Victor, I want to make a comment.
Yes.
Because I think this excess contact hour fee is not well understood, and I want to make sure the board understands it. So let me give a fairly simple example. It's not uncommon to see in a catalog, both here and other colleges, that of course might be two lecture, 2 lab, that turns out to be 3 credits. But if you add the 2 lecture and 2 labs together, that's 4 hours. We call those contact hours. So in an example like that, it's 3 credits, 4 contact hours. Now, what do students pay for? They pay full freight for the 3 credits. They don't pay full freight for the 4th hour. But what does the college pay faculty? We pay full freight on the 4 contact hours. So it's a fairly expensive proposition to for the college. It's been a long-standing practice. I'm not challenging the practice. It's just that we need to understand that cost structure there. Now, the additional hour that, in this instance, in the example, students do pay something. We've been charging them $75 for that excess contact hour, which is a tad over 50%, tad under 50% of our per credit rate. We are increasing that to 85. That's a significant increase. It's a 13% increase, but we found it necessary to do that in terms of balancing revenues and expenses. Now, there are some programs where there are a lot of excess contact hours. So you have students in, say, an allied health program or a nursing program, and they might have a dozen excess contact hours. So the tuition, this charge could be really prohibitive, expensive for those students. We cap it at a maximum of 7 contact hours. So regardless of how many excess contact hours you have cumulative, as a student, you would never pay for more than 7 in any one semester.
Dr. Evan, is that by the student's individual schedule?
Yes.
Correct? So if I have no excess contact hours as a student, I don't pay any
Don't
extra
pay
fee.
anything.
And did we do an analysis to see, with our current enrollments, what additional revenue does implementing this excess contact hours bring in?
$492,000.
And on the student side, on an average, how much does it bump up their fee?
That I don't know. I mean, it really would depend upon the program the student is in. You'd get a bigger increase in those programs such as allied health with lots of excess contact
So
hours.
that would be about how much? Just to do
Well,
the
it would
math,
be
7, if those who takes,
Before, they would be paying 7 times 75, what's that? Someone do the math?
5 1/4.
5 1/4?
Yeah.
Those students will now be paying $5.95.
Correct.
So they'll be paying $70 total more in a semester.
okay, that's all I wanted to know. Thank you.
We did take a look at how other institutions deal with this excess contact hour, and it's really all over the map. We are sort of unusual in the way we go about doing it.
Unusual in the sense, are we charging students lesser than what others charge, or are we in the
no,
middle ground?
No, students generally pay per credit, but you say, at a typical university, those lab hours are not taught by full-time faculty. They're taught by graduates at a reduced fee. Some of the other community colleges, full-time faculty teach them, but they're paid at a reduced rate. We don't. Now, the position we've always taken at the college, it goes back from the very beginning, is that we don't use graduate students to teach lab hours, that the students get the faculty member for both the lecture and the lab. And in contractual negotiations from decades and decades ago, the college made a decision to pay faculty based upon contact hours.
Okay, thank you.
On page 20, this is our historical, in capital funding, we get funds from the county, and we also get from Chapter 12. The county bonds has been averaging $1.5 million in recent years, and historically, we've used that for life cycle improvements, and some years for capital construction projects at the county. What we're proposing next year, the $1.5 million is split between IT, life cycle, and the construction projects. Chapter 12 funding, been notified that we'll anticipate getting $4.1 million. Majority of that will assist the culinary funding that we started with, and the other are for various capital projects that we have planned at the college. The county will seek 50% reimbursement from the state, but this has been our historical trend for funding on page 21 from chapter 12. And the last is more information about our financial aid as far as funding from the feds on Pell and state on TAG, federal loans, NJ STARS, supplemental education opportunity grant funding. And number of applications we receive at the college has been averaging 15,000 or so, and we only award about half of that on a regular basis. So it's 7,000 this past year got awarded financial aid, and of course there's scholarship opportunities through the foundation. So this is our budget overview. Any questions by anybody?
Let me make one additional comment on this last page. What we're told from the state is that a lot of, from both federal government and the state, is a lot of financial aid money is left on the table. Students don't apply for it, they don't complete the FAFSA application. We saw that in the Community College Opportunity Initiative as well. In the higher ed reauthorization bill that we think the Congress will act on in December, there's a proposal to streamline the FAFSA
One-time
application.
FAFSA. The one-time FAFSA.
Yes. But the other thing is, we have, Larry, what, about 30K left from the Community College Opportunity Grant?
A little less that we'll use on it.
A little less. And we've made a decision to use that money to do more workshops, more outreach, to encourage students to complete the FAFSA, and then to help them complete it. It's a really complicated application. And I think, students who have families that are used to completing these types of applications and all that, they have an advantage over first-generation students that don't have that type of experience. So we're going to try to make a major effort with that, close to 30,000, 20-some thousand.
Even with a PhD, I find it difficult for my
Yeah,
kids, just FYI. So it's not about just being first generation, it's just about what it requires and the level of detail it requires. So actually, as much dollars as you invest will pay us back in enrollments and retention, I can assure you that. And getting them the help they need.
I do this for a living, and for my own son's FAFSA last year, I screwed up and had to call the helpline. Because I put my information where his should be, it was nuts. And I'm dreading doing it again this year, so whatever you can do to help.
But I just want to tell you quickly, I grew up in a house of 10 kids. We were pros. By the time we got to the last one, not a problem.
So Larry, we have a trustee, I think,
There
is
you go.
volunteering to do the workshop.
She's on that committee.
No, you're right, but it's how often, it's a document you have to get used to.
One of the other things that's tripping students up across the country is the verification process. So I think when it was all originally set up, the expectation was something like 20 to 30% would be selected for verification. I think it's now 60 to 70%, and that delays the award of financial aid too. We talked to Senator Menendez about this particular issue, and he seemed to take a real interest in seeing whether or not there could be some streamlining of the verification process. And here I think, Victor, if I'm right, we're making some decisions about how we do verifications that will speed up and reduce cost, right, for next year?
We're starting that next week, where they're, the company that we contracted with is going to be on campus showing us, and we're hoping to process 3 days on the average instead of 6 weeks. So that should improve a lot of things.
At a lower cost too, I might add.
Yes.
Any other questions for Dr. Vinay?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And that concludes my report.
I don't know how, there you go.
Okay, now we'll have committee reports. Report for Audit and Finance, Dottie?
Yes, Audit and Finance recommends that the board approve AF1 through AF19.
That was a long meeting. That was a long meeting.
Yeah.
Education and, report for Education and Student Affairs, Joe?
The ESA committee met in the middle of February, and we're offering up ESA 1 through 7 for approval.
Thank you.
May I make one comment there? I mentioned it to Trustee Barreto before. For those of you who are on the Education Committee, when we brought this resolution forward, ESA 1, the grant to the Office of Violence Against Women, 500 and some thousand. We're the lead agency,
Right.
and we had 2 community college partners, Hudson Community College and Sussex. Late last week, they pulled out. So we thought this grant was sufficiently important that we wanted to still make the application. I give a lot of credit to our grants office. They persuaded Morris County College to join in. So when you look at the resolution, you'll see a modification. It says Morris now, not Hudson and Sussex.
Right.
And there will be one other college that we will recruit because we want 2 partners in that. So it is a difference from what went through ESA.
I just want to add that the office, from what I know, because I've been funded under this grant, that they are, they have expanded. Earlier, they had criteria where they wouldn't give a grant funding, repeat funding more than 2 or 3 times maximum. But they have changed those rules now, so you can keep applying and you'll keep getting the money as long as it meets the requirements of the grant. So I know that you're.
Well, that's good. That's new to me because I thought we were limited after 2.
No, not anymore. They are willing to look at, the application has to be strong, has to justify why do you still need it. And our budget situation is a very good reasoning to put within that. And so put that in and add in information about we still have all these programs which we may, we risk losing, and that's why we want to reapply. And they will give it to you as long as they are just, it justifies the criteria. But there's no longer a limit. They're being very open-minded on this.
Great. Thank you.
I mean,
Very
this
good.
comes straight from the grant directors who manage this program. So.
Very good. Personnel, Patrick?
We met on February 21st, and as a committee, and we are recommending P1 through 10. As I mentioned at our last meeting, it was very fulfilling to see 2 of the 3 bargaining units contracts that were on there, and I'm very happy to see the 3rd one is on here with the faculty. So congratulations to all people who were involved in that. If I could just take one moment.
Go ahead.
I also had the pleasure of attending the Black History Month closing ceremony with Joe, Carol, you were there, Gerard already mentioned, I think that was it. And as a K-12 person, it was refreshing also to see 2 students,
Right.
one from Teaneck and one from Hackensack, perform at the ceremony, and they did a wonderful job. I had the great opportunity to razz my colleagues because they weren't there and I was able to see them. I also was very fortunate that I, on the 13th of February, attended one of the sessions that 2 of our professors were performing on the Many Rivers to Cross program. And aside from the 2 professors who were running the show and 2 other faculty members came in, it was all student run. They did a really wonderful job of the program.
Thank you. Site and facilities, Mark?
Site and Facilities met on February 18th, and we're requesting board support for SF1.
Thank you. Strategic planning, Irene.
Strategic plan has not met since our last meeting, so we should be meeting this month.
There's the institutional that's out of order here, but there's 2
Oh,
institutional.
yes, okay, there are. Saw them on the other thing. They read it, yeah. Okay, we also have,
That's the institutional, I-1.
this is I-1?
Yes.
Yes, the institutional one. And,
And institutional 2 is
Sure, right.
authorization of a legal settlement with the student.
okay. Both of them will be on. Report from the alumni trustee, Sabora.
Sabora? Okay.
I'm sorry, I was
That's okay.
That's all right, that's okay.
So I had the pleasure to attend the ACCT Legislative Summit, and it was a very different experience, I'd say. Before, I had the chance to attend different events at Trenton, so I would advocate for community colleges, but this time, being an alumni trustee, kind of, and talking to other alumni trustees, made me realize a lot of things about Bergen, things that we stand a bit better than other community colleges, and things that we can improve. And about things that we can improve, I would definitely follow up with Dr. Redmond and any other Board of Trustee who's interested. So thank you for the opportunity.
I just want to add to her report the fact that she was brave enough in a room of a few thousand to stand up and ask the speakers in the company of like real senior trustees from around the country to stand up and ask her own questions. So good job, Sabora.
Thank you.
Very good. We all witnessed it. Thank you, Sabora. My report as chairperson, well, I went to all the things that Gerard was there. Joe was there. Everybody else was there. I enjoyed every single thing, and I went to see the opening night of Cyrano. Oh, my God. That was amazing. And I understand. What happened?
Well, on Thursday night, I think he's okay now, but the young man playing the role of Cyrano fell ill 2 scenes from the end, just as it had gotten really, really great. I think it was a stomach illness overcame him. But
He was absolutely unbelievable. It was like being on Broadway. He was just terrific. It was a really good show. And if anybody has not seen any of them, there's another one coming up soon at the Saccone Theater, okay? I did attend our February meetings in Washington, D.C. We went up to talk to the senators and the representatives. But I was put on the Audit and Finance Committee, Victor.
that made you happy, right?
Yeah, it made me terrific. The first meeting of the morning, I had to be there at 9, and I didn't get out till 12. Yeah, it was great. And then they said, because on the telephone call, I never got the agenda, so I listened to them for almost an hour and couldn't respond to anything. And finally, they talked about raising the dues.
Oh, the dues, yeah.
The dues for ACCT, and I was really ready to go. I didn't know anything about it, but I was going to say something. And 2 of the men said no. Noah, the lead, said no, the president, and he said because he thinks that colleges are really having tight circumstances at this time. And I said, well, you better believe it, because our state, but our county is pretty good. I said, and students have to do a lot, paying a lot of money here. I said, I don't think we can afford that. So guess what I'm on? No, I'm on another committee. I'm on the membership committee now. I have So because of that, I'm on the membership committee, because they go by numbers of people. So somebody who has a college of 20,000 people pay a certain amount. Somebody who has $100,000, the difference is not that much, so they want to equalize it. And I said, oh, I'm good for that. So that's where I'll be in, when are we going? And I have the first meeting in San Francisco too at 9 o'clock in the morning. Anyhow, so I enjoy it, and I had a great time, and I think we made a hit with our representatives, didn't we?
I thought it went well.
I think so.
I haven't been through that experience before. It was a new one for me. It was sort of fun, although it took some getting used to.
But it was very good, and there were things that I'm really glad that we are pushing, and one is and it was on TV on Sunday night too, the people incarcerated, that
Second chance.
Yeah.
second chance.
So I'll report that in my,
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll come back next month and do
Okay.
this in more detail.
Okay.
Sure.
Yeah, there's a lot to say, and I know it's, this is the place we usually have our shortest meeting. Okay. Unfinished business, anybody? New business? Nobody? Okay. May I please have a motion to open to the public?
Move it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Is there anyone wishing to address the board?
Not another presentation, just one member of the Opportunity Grant Committee that I did not recognize, and he is Tyler Beebe, right here, and I wanted to make sure that he was recognized as part of the committee.
He gets his own board. Thank you. Tracy.
Good evening, Madam Chairman, President Resman, Board of Trustees, and our audience. I really came for one matter tonight, but heard a couple things, so I just want to make two quick comments. One is on the average gross income. My feedback would be to definitely raise it to $75,000. That's nothing in Bergen County and actually for most of New Jersey. I think that's really important for our students to help more students across our state. And the other is, I couldn't be more proud of our college staying with the Office of Violence Against Women grant. As a survivor of domestic violence, I can tell you that educating our students as to the different forms of domestic violence, the resources there are, and how to get through that process is vitally important for their future success. So I thank you for sticking with it when others walked away. So the real reason I'm here, and I'm going to end this on a higher note, I came on behalf of another committee, which I'm not part of. I couldn't join this year for personal reasons, the Women's History Month Committee. As you know, we're in Women's History Month. Yay! So, couple events I just want to point out to you. The opening tea had to be rescheduled for scheduling reasons to this Friday at 10 a.m. in the Moses Conference Center. And our chairwoman, freeholder chairwoman Jermaine Ortiz, who is also a former Board of Trustee member, will be the keynote speaker. And then there's many events, but I'm just highlighting two. On Wednesday, March 27th at 12:30, again in the Moses Center, will be the Women's History Closing Lunch. And Chairperson Otis will be our honorary guest. So we look forward to that, and we hope you will have an opportunity to join us. Very reasonable, if any, fees. One of the things you'll see at the opening tea, and will be on exhibit, is our Rosies. So one of my team members, Gloria Savalas, who is co-chair, and a great photographer and particularly talented, put out a request through PR in the Bergen Daily and some emails to ask women of the college to step up and be the Rosies, the women who keep the college working and you may or may not know about. The toughest part after you got your picture taken was you had to come up with your moniker, right? So this is Maria, for any of you who cannot see her, and she is Maria the Dedicated. So I have it here, if you'd like to see it. Thank you, Maria, for participating. We're still kind of working on a final place for the exhibition, but at the opening tea this Friday, they will be displayed somehow, some way. We're still working on that. So thank you, hope to see you there.
I'm willing to offer you my picture because I dressed up like that in Halloween about a year ago. So you can put a trustee picture and I'll give you my moniker also.
Okay, terrific. That would be wonderful. Thank you.
Maria, did we include the flyer for Women's History Month?
We don't have it here.
No.
So we'll send it to you because it's available now.
Yeah.
It's a pretty rich program.
Right in the student center.
Yeah, right?
Is there anyone else who would like to address the board? Seeing no one, may I have a motion to close to the public?
I'll move it.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Let's see. May I have a oh, we did that. I must be tired. Let's see. Okay, now we have the approval of the minutes. The minutes for February 5th, 2019, the meeting minutes. May I have a motion?
Motion.
Second?
Okay. Motion has been first and seconded. Maria, please take roll call.
Yes. Joseph A. Barretto?
Yes.
Dorothy Blakesley?
Yes.
Gerard Carroll?
Yes.
Patrick Fletcher?
Yes.
Mark Longo?
Yes.
Carol Otis?
Yes.
Irene Ujo?
Yes.
Chital Ranjan?
Yes.
Joseph Zara's absent, Sabora Pecca?
Abstain.
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 Abstain. Let's see, the next one is, may I please have a motion to accept the February 5th, 2019 executive session meeting minutes?
Motion.
Second.
Take a roll.
Yes. Joseph A. Barretto?
Yes.
Dorothy Blakesley?
Yes.
Gerard Carroll?
Yes.
Patrick Fletcher?
Yes.
Mark Longo?
Yes.
Carol Otis?
Yes.
Irene Ujo?
Yes.
Chital Ranjan?
Yes.
Joseph Zara's absent, Sabora Pecca?
Abstain.
Consent agenda items for approval for Tuesday, March 5th, 2019. May I please have a motion to approve the following consent agenda items? AF1 to AF19, ESA 1 to ESA 7, Institutional 1 and 2, Personnel 1 to 10, Site and Facilities 1. May I have a motion?
I'll offer.
Second.
Second.
Take the roll, please.
Yes, of course. Joseph A. Barretto?
Yes.
Dorothy Blakesley?
Yes.
Gerard Carroll?
Yes.
Patrick Fletcher?
Yes.
Mark Longo?
I just want to recuse myself from AF1, yes on everything else.
Yes, thank you. Carol Otis?
Yes.
Irene Ujo?
Yes.
Chital Ranjan?
Yes.
Joseph Zara's absent, Sabora Pecca?
Yes.
Thank you.
Motion stands approved. Okay. There's no. I cautiously looked. Let's see, since we don't have an executive session, may I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll offer.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The March 5th, 2019 meeting of the Board of Trustees is now adjourned. That is funny.